Welcome to the Master Your Mindset and Metabolism podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Dunlap, creator of the Metabolism Reboot Academy and kellydunlap.com. I am a mindset and metabolism coach who helps female entrepreneurs reprioritize their health, balance their hormones, and reboot their metabolism so they can regain their energy, finally lose the weight, and feel confident in their own skin. I help women break up with the start-over syndrome, all or nothing mindset, help get them off the diet wagon so they can create a consistent plan for a sustainable, healthy lifestyle free of diets. In this podcast, we will talk about all things mindset, metabolism, the role our hormones play in all of this, and how to reboot your mindset and metabolism so you can finally step into your new empowered life. Thank you so much for being here and pressing play. Now let's begin. Hey, Kelly here. I'm so excited that you are tuning in. This episode is a fabulous conversation between myself and my dear friend Jared Tavasolian. And I am not going to try and describe what Jared does because it's extremely unique. I can't even describe it in words because it is so cool because I have experienced it myself personally, and we talk a little bit about that in the episode. What we do is very similar as far as helping our clients to connect with their body and really helping to calm down that nervous system so that they can have the transformation that they desire. However, Jared does his techniques in a few different ways than I do. And that's why I wanted to have him on here, because what he does is so cool and so unique. And like I said, I'll let him explain what it is that he does, because when I try to explain it, I just don't do it elegantly. So we have a great conversation, and we talk about my experience with him and what it is that he does. And I cannot wait for you to hear more about him and how you can heal strong. So without further ado, here's the episode. Hey friends, Kelly here. I am so excited to introduce my dear friend, Jared Tavasolian. And he is an amazing, what I like to call a pain management movement coach, but I know he calls himself something different, but he actually put me through a fun movement series, and I couldn't believe the way that I felt. And I wanted to share him with you because he is just so full of goodness and amazing knowledge. And I thought that we could have a really fun conversation. Jared and I had actually met in a mastermind. We have the same coach, the amazing Nicole Spencer. Want to give her a little shout out there. And we have just become great friends, and we, connect and talk all the time. And I said, hey, you know what? You got to be a guest. I want to share you with my audience. So here we are. So thank you so much, Jared, for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure, really.
I'm so excited. So, all right. One of the things that, well, first of all, I have to share that when Jared and I, before we hit the record button, I shared with him that I got an Aura ring, and I'm so excited to have that because it's really helped me so much. Because when Jared and I really chatted, I reached out to him during when we were a part of this one coaching program. I said, hey, you know what? Like, what is it that you do? I'm really interested. And so he said, well, let's play. And he had me monitoring my temperature at certain times a day, like write down when I ate and what time I woke up and all of these interesting things, which is a little different approach than what I do with my clients. And I thought, this is very fascinating and interesting. So that was one thing. And then he put me through a movement series. I was in my basement. He was, talking me through it via Zoom, and it was very successful. And just the way that I felt was very recalibrated, is the best way that I can describe it. It was like I felt calmed. I felt like if I had that practice when I was struggling with quitting alcohol, and well, I haven't really fully quit alcohol, but when I was struggling with alcohol in the way that I was, that something like that would have been a really great recalibration tool for me, just because it gave me the outcome that I was seeking every time that I wanted to drink, for example. It gave me that calmness. It gave me that feeling of just, feeling just more peace and calmness all put together,
So that was one of the biggest. I remember thinking, God, I feel like I just had a massage and I've just been kind of moving around on the floor for like 20 minutes, which was really cool. So all that said, I knew that Jared's approach was really different. And so I recently got this Aura ring and I jumped on, I'm like, Jared, I got the Aura ring. I'm so excited. It's helping me with so many things. I feel so much more rested and it's helping me to take that deeper dive. And let's face it, I mean, Jared, I think you'd probably agree that when you do get the Aura ring, you have to be ready for it. You have to be ready for it because it is a little bit on a deeper level, but it's very, very informative and it really helps to behavior correct. So all that said, Jared, can you describe basically like what I had just shared with everybody? Like what was the intention of the whole process that you had taken me through? What was that information giving you? What was it providing you? What did it tell you? And, why is it that you use those particular, that particular data when it comes to working with people? And maybe you don't use that approach with everybody, but I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, thank you. So for me, what I kind of found was that body temperature and pulse is a good indication of health. And so what I was seeing with a lot of clients that were coming into me is like they spend thousands and thousands of dollars on lab tests and on allergy tests or on, like if they're allergic to certain foods. And so people were spending all this money. And the problem with it is that those tests are just snapshots in time, right? Like that's telling you what's going on in that moment. And it could be stressful for people. They could have had a fight with their boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife. The kids could have been crazy. There could be all these factors that they just spent all this money on lab tests that don't really give you the full picture. And so what I do with people is I have them take their body temperature and pulse at certain points throughout the day because it's an indicator for health. So there was a doctor years ago who came to the conclusion that our body temperature is supposed to be 98.6 degrees and that our pulse should be between 70 and 85. And so those are some markers. And what we can see, it's not the end all be all, but it's another thing that we can take into account is when you wake up, what's your temp and pulse? When you eat during the day, how does your temp and pulse affect, like how does what you eat affect your temps and pulses? And so I can see how people are living and operating in their day over time, which I think is a greater value than a lab test in that moment. So like, for instance, I have a health checklist, which I have here on my phone that I will just say, these are, because in our industry, there is this belief that if you're fit, you're also healthy. But what I found is the people who are the fittest are actually the most unhealthy. And I see people not only for nutrition, but I work on their bodies. I do body work and I can tell we're not supposed to be in pain unless you've been in a traumatic accident, like you've been in a car accident or fell out of a treehouse. Like if you've been hit, you're going to be hurt. But most people walk around with chronic pain or digestive issues from life. But we weren't born like that. And somehow we accumulate that over time. You know what I mean? So my health checklist is you have a resting heart rate between 70 and 85. Your body temperature is between 97.8 and 98.6. You have warm hands, feet, and nose. You have steady energy all day long, a strong immune system. You maintain a healthy weight easily. You have a positive mood, good digestion without bloating. You have strong libido, strong, healthy hair, skin, and nails. You fall asleep easily and stay asleep. You have deep, uninterrupted sleep for 7 to 9 hours and 1 to 3 satisfying bowel movements daily. So those are some things that as I run through those, you can kind of check them off if they apply to you or not. And it's a good indicator if what you're doing is working, because I live in LA and I work on men's health cover models and bikini models. And I see the people who look the top 1%. And I would say most of them don't feel good at all. And they're sacrificing their health to look a certain way. And at some point they come to a crossroads because you can't maintain that for so long. And like I said earlier, our body communicates to us in pain. So it's the way our body gets our attention. It's just whether we're looking and willing to listen to what it says. And most people will put duct tape over it because it's like check engine and they don't want to see it. You know what I mean? So that's why I do what I do.
I love it. Let's stick our head in the sand, but I love that analogy, putting duct tape over the check engine light. And it's so true. And I would say, I know that you would agree with this, that I know one of the toughest components of my job is the inner, the inner ear, I guess, is for lack of better words, is getting the client to that point where they're like, oh, I am now connecting the dots. And just as a matter of fact, I had a conversation with a client yesterday, and she said, I'm starting to feel better, and I'm caring less about that scale and the energy that I have, and And now I'm starting to really listen to my body. I'm like, yes, we've gotten you there. That is the pathway to your freedom, right? And so it's like, sometimes I'll say, I call myself an energy whisperer, because I don't necessarily say, hey, we need to focus on your energy so that you can get better and do all the things that you want to achieve. They don't want to fucking hear that. They're like, yeah, more energy would be great, but they don't look at energy also as being the ticket to getting them to where they desire to be, because so many people are just so wrapped up in the fucking calories and the exercise. And then that's like when you talk about your aesthetically beautiful clients that you have, they look amazing, but inside their body is just screaming.
Oh, totally. It's wrecked. And the saying is like, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. And so when we look at, especially, those things carry over to everything. So when we talk about health and fitness and diet and all that stuff, people are so focused on the endpoint. They're focused on losing the weight or getting to that number on the scale or getting down to a size 4 or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. But the statistics show you that something like 95% of people that lose weight gain it back in a year. Yes. That's a staggering number. So if we're focused on that endpoint and we see that outcome creates us to go back to where we started in a year, we know it's not working. And so we have to change the dialogue or the narrative around what's important. And unfortunately, our culture and society and magazines and media makes you believe that a certain look is healthy, but I see just as many skinny people that are unhealthy as fat people or overweight people. So like, that's not an indicator. And if you're sacrificing your joy and happiness to get there, it's like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? And so we have to just change that and get people, like you're saying, to realize that it's not about that there's other more important things. Because I guarantee the person that feels better and has energy is going to stay in the game longer than the person who diets to a certain point, gets to their weight, and then now what, and they haven't learned anything about themselves.
Right. It is so true. So many good points there. I always take notes when I do my podcast, because I'm like, oh, that's so good. I got to talk about this. But like, it's one of the things that you would say, which is so true, is that people lose the weight and they can't keep it off. Well, you and I know scientifically a lot of it's because they are losing their muscle, and then that turns into a whole shit show. So at the end of the day, people don't have a weight loss problem. They have a weight regain problem. And that's what we have in society, is that it's that problem that you described right there. And another thing that I've been really trying to bring to light, and this is interesting how you just said, like, somebody could be thin and look healthy and skinny, but they're the skinny fat, which is the sarcopenia, right? Which is the thin obesity, which is more so they have more fat versus muscle. And this is a prime example. I said something to my husband about a friend who wasn't feeling well and was having some troubles. And he said, this is his exact words, but she's thin. What the fuck does that have to do with anything? Right? That right there said it all. Was like, that's part of the problem. He's equating that the fact that she's thin, that means that she's healthy. And she wasn't. She felt like total dog shit.
Yeah. So a good story to that is, I have a friend out here who, he was a trainer in Hollywood for a long time, and he's worked with a lot of the movie industry stuff. And he told me that one time he was on a set and they were doing pictures for Cosmo or one of the women's health magazines. And there was this beautiful girl, super skinny, and she was there to demonstrate exercises for the layout of the magazine, like the workout portion of the magazine. And she's skinny, so everyone's going to equate like, wow, that's what I want to look like. All the women want to equate that. But he was like, she was so weak, he would have to hold her in the middle of a push-up position and then back away so they could snap it before she fell because she couldn't hold herself up. But then they sell that as like, that's what you got to look like to be. So we have all these things in our mind about it. So
Yeah,
saying
shame on them for doing that. You know, like
it's
seriously, shame on them for doing that, because that's so false. And that's such a, I don't know, that is like, it doesn't surprise me to hear that at all. You know what I mean? But that's interesting. I'm glad that he shared that with you, because you can share that. And people are like, oh my God, I wonder if she's being held up in the background or somebody kind of propped her up.
And that's the thing is like, you know, I do a form of body work, and I push on people's bodies. It's kind of a mix between acupressure and reflexology. And depending on where you are that's sore or tender or have pain, it refers to a different organ in the body. So if the anterior deltoid, so I'll give you one quick story. It's like I had a client who he could have one arm go straight up and the other arm kind of was like crooked.
Yeah.
Get up all the way.
Almost looks like they could only do a shoulder press height.
Barely get it up over his forehead. And he was a contractor. And so he's like, I have to carry these panels all day long. And we're kind of doing an intake. And I'm like, okay, well, you know, have you had any major illnesses or diseases or anything? And I know that anterior deltoid refers to gallbladder. So like that's in my training, I learned that. And so in my head, I'm hearing my mentor tell me like gallbladder, like I'm getting the hits for gallbladder. And he goes, yeah, like 9 months ago, I had my gallbladder removed. So it's this indication that our organs relate to our muscles, and that's what then causes pain. So I'm pushing on people all the time and feeling their body. And it's unfortunate because when you see someone on Instagram, so I've worked with a lot of influencers and people who are doing a lot of great stuff online, and you can look a certain way and you can put off a certain feel, but when you touch them, it's a completely different story.
Yeah.
And so people are blindly following these influencers online, thinking like their plan is going to get me to where I want to go. And they don't realize that that person is really messed up. And so it's just the unfortunate part of the internet. And I guess, you know, for us, eventually they'll find us and we'll be able to help them. So
yes, I hear that all the time. I'm in some groups, which as I'm sure you are as well. And some coaches get really upset about like certain systems or products that are out there. And they take it very, very personally. How can I get these people to see that they're ruining their bodies? That is not our journey. It's theirs to figure out on their own. And it's very interesting to see how people get, you know, just really worked up about it. And it's like, sure, let's face it, it is kind of annoying. Let's say it, let's just face it. But I would be lying if I said that those moments in my life when I followed those things that maybe weren't so healthy for me didn't take me. It was the vehicle that took me to the thing.
Totally.
Eventually, like you said, they'll get to coaches like us who work on that deeper level eventually, you know. But it's I think it's so fascinating. So for example, with the work that you do, so like the series that you had put me through, like you could tell that you kept talking about my hips appearing to be very tight, which is very true. You know, and there were definite moves that you had put me through very, very specifically. Can you share a little bit more about the reason why you put me through some of those moves, and the whole thing behind that? Because there's something to that, because it made me feel very good, you know. And mind you, he's in California, I'm in Michigan, so you know, it was pretty effective.
That's cool. Yeah. So pretty much the idea behind it is like it's based on how children develop. Like when you look at a child develop from when they are on their backs and they can't move to when they start being able to roll to when they start being able to crawl and to rock and then be able to stand, like they go through a very specific movement sequence to get them there. And I look at my son who's 6. My son is 6. He's never done a WOD. He's never been to a CrossFit class. He's never done a workout. He's never done any of that. And he has full access and capability to everything in his arsenal. So if we climb, he can climb. If he wants to run, he can sprint. He can swim. He can fight. He can do everything. And he's never done a workout. because we're built for that. And somewhere along the lines, we've forgotten that. And then we have our culture that makes us sit in these chairs and sit in our cars and sit on couches. And if you look, there's barely any adults over 40 who are like reaching up overhead to grab something in full extension or getting on the floor and crawling because the floor is dirty. So the body works in efficiency. If you stop using something, you will lose it. So it's trying to keep you safe and safe. And so what these patterns do is they help you to remember what you used to be like, to give you those things back, because working out is a man-made concept. We don't work out. We're the only creature in nature that actively expends calories for the sake of expending them, where every other creature in nature tries to conserve it. And that's because of the life we've created, you know? So these movements do that. And as an example, I work with a lot of athletes and people who are fit. And so like a year ago or something, I was working with a guy who's in the Navy and he could deadlift, I don't know, 375 pounds. That's a lot of weight. So he's strong. But when he was sitting on the floor, he could not stand up without using his hands. So he has all this strength, but because he's so immobile and inflexible, he can't even get up. He's useless. He's only strong in a certain range of motion. And I'll tell you what, when you look at life, life happens everywhere in all different angles, in all different possibilities. So we need to be what Julie and I call 360 strong. You need to be strong in all the movements. But when you go to the gym, it's a bench press like this. It's a military press like this. You work very specific ranges. And then you'll hear stories of like really fit people who then throw out their back stepping off a curb or picking up groceries. It's like, wait, you can lift all that weight and yet you get hurt doing a mundane task. So these skills kind of help you to regather that. And the last thing I'll just say is like what I see, and I had another lady from one of the masterminds contact me yesterday talking about, you know, she's fit, she's healthy, well, not healthy, but she's fit, she's strong, she looks good. And she's like, I need to become flexible. So what stretching program should I do? And I'm like, you shouldn't stretch. And so what people don't understand is like, we are the only animal in nature that passively stretches. You'll never see a lion try to hold a stretch or a monkey hold a stretch before it does its thing. We do. And we are the only ones that have injuries and surgeries and all these things. So no animal in nature stretches.
I just can't stop laughing about the animal. I'm just visualizing an animal doing like a, you know.
Yeah, like an active like hamstring stretch. Like it wouldn't happen. Like you never would see that.
But would you die if you saw like an elephant lifting up one leg or
sure.
a lion doing a plank? I mean,
never happens. Yeah. So they know that like we know that active or passive stretching doesn't work, but people use that as a means because they get stiffer and stiffer and tighter and tighter. And there's other ways to go about it that are. And so in my opinion, the exercises I showed you are about mobility because we need to move through these ranges of motion in a gentle way. And the reason why you felt so good on the floor is because one of our biggest sense organs is our skin. So our body actually receives information through our skin. And in traditional cultures, there's more touching and hugging and contact, and we've lost that. And with COVID, we've even gotten further away from that. So now we don't even have that contact, and it feels good to have our skin rubbed. So when you get on the floor and you roll around, it's essentially like nutrition for your skin. It's for your body, and it's calming for your nervous system.
Yeah, definitely tapped into that feminine side, you know, the parasympathetic. There's no question there. So when I'm hearing you talk, the interpretation that my brain is, and it's probably just because of who the hell knows, but just whatever, everybody's brain is different, but it's almost like those movements and the series of things that you engage and you have these people do, it's like it unlocks something. It unlocks a lot of things, probably endorphins and whatever else, not really sure, maybe serotonin levels, maybe it changes that, who knows? But at the end of the day, it's kind of like when we try to do this, like you were talking about, like, no, you shouldn't stretch, you should focus more, something like this, where it's almost like we are just continuing to put ourselves in this container that is just going to keep us more stuck, more, frustrated, and just keep us so pigeonholed. Like when you describe that guy, which, hey, he's super strong, but he's useless if he falls.
Yeah.
Like, fuck, like that's just crazy when you think about it. It's so, it's just so like one, like there's no broad focus at all. It's just this one way street. And that's very fascinating.
Yeah.
But the unlocking, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, so what we've seen is that the nervous system is a huge aspect of people's health. And it actually, for a long time, we've been talking about metabolism and hormones and, then calories and like all the things, but really the nervous system drives everything. And in our society today, most people are overwhelmed and stress is the demands being placed on the body are greater than the body can handle. And so we have people who are running on empty, going all over the place. They're barely eating and supporting their body. And then they think they're going to go and do a HIIT workout or they're going to do weight training. It's like, it's not going to work. And so actually what they need is they need more of a restorative practice. So I think our culture is really funny. Like the things that are free, that have the biggest bang for your buck is like sleep, breath, and relaxation. And it's the three things that no one gives a shit about. They're looking at what supplements can I take? What diet can I do? What expensive procedure can I have? What machine can I buy? And so we're really backwards. And so my job is just to help people reconnect and to get back in touch so that eventually they don't need the Aura ring. They have a connection to their body so that they know when they feel. And we've lost touch with that connection. And that's what keeps us stuck, because people who are jumping to different diets or jumping to different programs have lost connection to themselves. And I always tell people, like, you can do all the different diets, you can do all the different cleanses, you can take all the pills, but if you don't change your environment, you can't heal in the same environment that got you sick. So if you're going to continue to live your same life, and it's interesting because when we're in our mastermind, Heather the other day, was it Heather or Bree? I think it was Bree, was like, you have to give people something when you're talking to them to blame it on why they didn't get results. So blame it on they didn't have the right strategy, or blame it on their metabolism, or blame it on something. But I think that's false. I think people need to take responsibility that they're living in a way beyond their means. And like, you have to own that. And it takes maturity and responsibility to do that. And most people don't want to do it.
Right. Yes. And the thing is it's funny that you bring that up, because just this morning I was doing a values elicitation with one of my clients, and we were talking about how she and I have a very similar journey. We both struggled with alcohol. We've both done a lot of work in getting in tune with how we feel, how people respond to us, what we have to own responsibility for, no longer blaming, letting go of shame, all of these different things. And so that is such a crucial part, no matter what, to anybody's journey, to help them. Once again, I think it's an unlocking, right? An unlocking of freedom, to help them to really get in tune, because it gets so fucking cluttered with, well, it's the hormones. Well, I got to blame it on this and I got to blame it on that, when they really just need to point the finger right back at them. I agree with you 1,000% that it's that ownership, and it's owning and the responsibility and doing their due diligence and reflection as to what is it that fucking got me here that I need to untangle myself from.
100%. Nailed it. I love it.
Period. End of story. Well, that's why you and I connect so much. Yeah. But what you do is amazing. I would love for you to share how people can connect with you, follow you. Maybe there's something that you can share with them that, perhaps there's a little freebie or something, not sure what you have set in place, but would love to be able to, shout that out. And then also too, we'll put that in the show notes for people so that they can connect with you as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So my website is Mohsen, Mohsen Health. It's my middle name. And in Farsi, Mohsen is the benefactor, the helper of others. So it's kind of fitting. And that's why I did that. They can find me on Instagram at Jared Tavasolian, or on Facebook, or on TikTok now. And Julie and I have put together some of our movement stuff on Movement Snacks. If you type in Movement Snacks on YouTube or on Instagram, you'll be able to see some stuff. So yeah, I got a lead magnet kind of helping people and some recipes and all that kind of stuff. So
cool. Awesome. Yeah. Well, we'll make sure that we put that in the show notes, because I know that even your last name is pretty damn fancy. So
thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So we gotta type that out for people, but thank you so very much for spending the time with me today. I know that everybody's going to just love you. And I think that you are offering a lot of value and a very needed awareness that needs to, be put out there for people. So
Kelly, I appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here. And we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If you love what you heard, please be sure to share it with me by leaving a review on iTunes. If you aren't already following me on social media, come find me on Facebook by searching Kelly Dunlap Lifestyle and Nutrition, or come join me in my Master Your Mindset and Metabolism Facebook group by going to kellydunlap.com/group. I cannot wait to connect with you on the next episode.